everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us for today's Tourism Town Hall. Merci de vous joindre à nous aujourd'hui pour l'Assemblée publique sur le tourisme. My name is Carol Alderdice, and I am President and CEO of the Tourism Industry Association of New Brunswick, and I will be your moderator for today's session. This Tourism Town Hall will provide the opportunity to hear from TIAC and Destination Canada to better understand efforts being made nationally on behalf of our industry. More importantly, this session will provide an opportunity to engage on issues affecting your businesses and the tourism industry in this province during this time of COVID. It will also give you a chance to provide feedback on government policy for the recovery and rebuilding of our sector. Before we start, just a reminder that we will have time at the end of the session for some questions and answers. If you have any questions that you have not already sent to us in advance, please submit them through the Q&A interface, which you can access at the bottom of your screen. We will pick them up during the course of the presentations. On vous encourage de soumettre vos questions en français si cela est plus facile pour vous, et nous allons les répondre en anglais ainsi qu'en français. Also, please note that today's session will be recorded and made available on the TIAC website. Lastly, for those of you that may be more fluent in French, we have sent the presentations by email in French for you to easily follow along, and they will also be available on the TIAC website. Enfin, pour ceux qui préfèrent s'exprimer en français, nous avons envoyé les présentations en français par courriel pour que vous puissiez les suivre facilement, et elles seront également disponibles sur le site web de l'AITC. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land, which each of us call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. I would like to acknowledge that I am speaking to you from the unceded territory of Wolastoqey in Fredericton. Our panelists for today are Beth Potter, President and CEO of the Tourism Industry Association of Canada, and Marsha Walden, President and CEO of the Destination Canada, and myself representing TIMB. So I will start. I once again want to thank you for joining us today and appreciate what you have been going through for over a year. I know we update you regularly, but here's a quick update on TIMB. We continue to work very hard to keep you informed on the ever-changing situations we find ourselves in constantly. We recently did a satisfaction survey, and 92% of our members said that they read our communications at least once a week, so we are very happy that you find them informative. On the advocacy side, we continue to work with the provincial and territorial associations to make sure we have the federal programs we need to help us survive, like wage subsidy and many others. We also work with the other Atlantic tourism associations on a number of issues, including the letter we sent to the Atlantic Liberal Caucus last week about keeping wage subsidy at its present level until the end of the year. We heard that it did get some attention and got to Minister Freeland's desk, so we will keep you informed as we hear more. Without this extension, I really do worry about the state of our industry, with closed borders and the delay in opening the Atlantic bubble. After all, we all know that even if we all get vaccinated, it's not over for us in our industry until revenues start coming in. Another item that the Atlantic Tourism Association have been working on with the receptive tour operators and government officials is the tourism reopening plan for the maritime provinces. We provided this plan to all the chief medical officers to make sure we have consistent policies for accessing and moving around the maritime provinces. We continue to work with the provincial government and representatives of all the regions in New Brunswick on the survival, recovery, and growth plan for our industry. On the labor shortage side, we are very pleased that we received approval to implement the New Brunswick Workforce Development Plan that will help our industry with the workforce shortage that is critical to our growth. Before COVID, we had a major labor shortage, and it will be even worse when we get back to normal because we've lost over 500,000 tourism jobs in Canada. And will those people that had to find other jobs to survive return to tourism? And of course, we continue to offer nationally recognized certification training programs. Just last week, Tourism HR announced a new eMerit Tourism Business Builders online program developed specifically for tourism and hospitality entrepreneurs. And it is offered free of charge until September 1st, 2021. And this is to assist tourism business owners, operators, and prospective entrepreneurs. Pour nos francophones, je voulais aussi vous dire qu'on continue à offrir des programmes de certification reconnus au niveau national et récemment, RH Tourisme offre gratuitement jusqu'au 1er septembre un nouveau programme en ligne de eMerit Entrepreneurs avertis conçu spécialement pour les entrepreneurs en tourisme et en hôtellerie afin d'aider les propriétaires d'entreprises touristiques et les exploitants. So now it is my pleasure to welcome Beth Potter, President and CEO of the Tourism Industry Association of Canada. Beth?
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you today, virtually in New Brunswick. Bonjour tout le monde et merci de vous joindre à nous aujourd'hui. I want to thank you for participating in today's Tourism Town Hall and for allowing me to share an update on the work that the Tourism Industry Association of Canada is doing on your behalf. Before I start, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home from coast to coast to coast, and we extend to them our respect for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. As many of you may know, I recently joined TIAC as president and CEO, but I am no stranger to the industry and have been actively involved for more than 30 years. I understand how hard these past 15 months have been on you and how concerned you are for the future. Many of you are asking, how are we going to get through this and what is TIAC doing to help? That's why I'm here, to give you an update on our current activities, initiatives, and our plans to lead Canada's tourism economy through to recovery. TIAC is the national voice for the tourism industry. We take action on behalf of Canadian tourism businesses, advocating, promoting, and supporting policies, programs, and activities that will benefit the sector's growth and development. While our office is based in Ottawa, we work closely with our provincial and territorial counterparts, including TINB. Carol and the team have kept us abreast of what is happening here so we can address the full range of issues facing this industry. In a nutshell, TIAC exists to give you a voice at the federal level so that you can keep focused on running your business. We are here to fight for you, which is exactly what we have been doing, fighting for your survival through this pandemic. For the past 15 months, we have been elevating the issues impacting our industry and meeting with federal officials, including MPs and senators, to share stories of industry challenges and needs. We have been pushing for sector-specific support and relief programs. From the very beginning of this pandemic, our message to government has been clear. The tourism industry is a vital economic generator and employer of millions. Canada cannot afford to lose its tourism industry. Tourism was the first hit, the hardest hit, and will be the last to recover. And this industry needs support now and through to recovery. Our advocacy efforts continue daily, and we were happy to see tourism repeatedly mentioned in the budget this spring, which is an acknowledgement of the struggles that this industry has faced. It is also a step in the right direction by the government in recognizing the value and contributions that this industry makes and the support required to ensure that we can rebuild. But what does this mean to you and your business? I want to highlight a few important pieces of the recently announced budget. And I also want to mention that there are a number of other measures in the budget that are not directly tied to tourism, but impact our sector. Things like affordable housing, broadband infrastructure, immigration policy, and funding for Parks Canada. The 2021 budget includes a $1 billion package for tourism support over the next 3 years. This includes funding through the regional development agencies, like ACOA, for festivals and events, and towards a tourism relief fund to support investments by local tourism businesses in adapting to public health measures in an effort to recover. It also includes funding to Destination Canada to ensure Canadian destinations are top of mind for Canadians in the beginning and to entice the return of high-value international travelers, ensuring that we remain a player on the global stage. Now, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy and the Rent Subsidy are very important programs to our sector. The proposed extension to September is a good signal towards business support, but we know the sector will need support past the fall. And while we welcome this extension, we will continue our work to ensure that the hardest hit businesses receive continued support at existing levels. There is also a proposal for the new Canada Recovery Hiring Program for eligible employers that continue to experience decline in revenues. This initiative was proposed to help businesses hire back laid off workers or to bring on new ones. As mentioned, there were numerous other items in the budget that impact our sector. However, our main priority is to ensure that you understand when and if these supports become available and how to access them. We will actively be sending out updates and information to industry as we learn more through our discussions with government. And we will work with TIAC to ensure that you have this information as quickly as possible. While we share this information, I have a favor to ask you. Please continue sharing your stories with us. It is crucial that we hear from you on issues that you're facing, particularly pertaining to federal support programs, so that we can work to address them. When we meet with federal officials, we tell your story of losing staff, of losing revenue, and worrying about how you will continue to operate. We highlight what your losses and struggle mean to the community and country in economic impact and the unique needs of the tourism industry. While we monitor program rollout, we will also need to look ahead, and TIAC is committed to championing the recovery of the industry. Proof of vaccination has gotten much attention in the media lately. We know that this will need to become a common part of travel documentation moving forward, and our efforts are to lead the conversations on ensuring a national approach. We are working to make sure there is one seamless system across Canada, as opposed to differing regional approaches. This would only create confusion to both domestic and international travelers. We also know not everyone will get vaccinated, and that is why it is crucially important that we plan for testing and processes for those that are traveling without a vaccine. It is our firm belief that travel cannot be limited to only those who have been vaccinated. So testing and contact tracing will have to be a part of the system. TIAC is also looking to lead the way in changing the current narrative on behalf of the sector. We need public confidence to understand that when restrictions are lifted, our businesses are prepared to offer experiences following all necessary health and hygiene protocols. We know just how much work and investment you have put into ensuring your businesses are compliant and ready for guests. We need to build the consumer confidence for travel to resume again so that you can get back to business. We know travel will resume, and we are advocating for a plan, calling on government to draw a line in the sand and set a target date to reopen. You can't plan with uncertainty. We know you need time to prepare, retool, retrain, and rehire before you will be ready to open. We have been facilitating conversations with the Canadian government and at the global table through the World Travel and Tourism Council, looking at what other countries have been doing to ensure that Canada is part of the seamless traveler experience for people that are moving around the world as we recover from the pandemic. While we address the challenges facing the industry, we are also forging ahead on other efforts, including Tourism Week, a national campaign that has been led by TIAC since 2003. It's a 7-day event to recognize Canada's tourism economy and the impact it has on every community across the country. This year, Tourism Week is May 23rd to 30th, and we are calling on Canadians to take the 2021 Tourism Pledge. That is, when restrictions are lifted to travel in Canada. We are extending an invitation to come together as a country and support our local tourism destinations, businesses, and employees. To learn more, please visit tourismcounts.ca. Before I close, I just want to personally thank our members in New Brunswick for supporting our advocacy efforts. I encourage every one of you to get involved by supporting your local, provincial, and national organizations who are working on your behalf. Thank you once again for joining our town hall here today. I look forward to addressing your questions in the discussion portion. And now I'll turn it back to Carol.
Thank you, Beth. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Marsha Walden, President and CEO of Destination Canada. Marsha?
Thank you, Carol, and good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's great to have a chance to connect with our partners in New Brunswick. Je suis très heureuse d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je vais donner cette présentation en anglais, mais nous avons fourni le document en français aux gens intéressés. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you bright and early this morning from Vancouver, and this is the traditional home of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. I'd like to start by just very briefly providing a little bit of background information on who we are at Destination Canada. For those that don't know, we are a federal crown corporation, and it's our mandate to sustain a vibrant and profitable Canadian tourism industry. And we help do this through a multitude of programs focused on marketing, research, destination development, and forging partnerships all across the world. As you might appreciate, much of our industry's strength is really found in the partnerships that you have with others. And so it is with us. Destination Canada, TIAC, and TIA New Brunswick have worked together for many years to bolster our industry's prospects in a highly competitive global sector. But never before has this strong collaborative response been so critical to our future. But before moving on to talk about that, I want to acknowledge how terribly difficult this past year has been for tourism and hospitality operators. And I think this slide says it all for all of us. And even for those who are left standing at the end of this crisis, recovery will be a long and challenging path for many. Today, I'm going to be touching on our work in 3 phases, really across 3 time horizons. First of all, surviving the pandemic and all of the related restrictions that continue to face us in the current environment. Secondly, reviving market revenue when the opportunity arises, and the promise of growth and opportunity for the future that still remains as part of the travel economy globally. And finally, thriving. We have a chance in this pause moment to increase the vitality of our industry in the future and to be better at delivering net benefits to the communities that we operate in and the long-term resilience of the businesses in our sector. So let's start with just talking briefly about our initial response to the pandemic to help businesses survive its devastating initial impacts. From a marketing perspective, we knew that travel would first restart at a hyper-local level, and we saw the opportunity to speak with Canadians in the summer of 2020 and through the fall. So we worked directly with our provincial and territorial partners last year to create a very agile co-op marketing approach that was able to respond to the very different realities right across the country as they emerged. And we did that through a significant partnership where provinces and territories funded local communities to help stimulate demand and travel for local operators. We also invested more than $18 million in other initiatives and partnerships to help bring together some significant players in our tourism ecosystem, some of which have huge reach, to ensure that we were helping our partners across Canada extend their buying power. And I think it's also worth mentioning that and acknowledging that the speed and scale of government response that we have seen to date in this pandemic at all levels has never before been seen in times of peace. And here are just a sample of some of the programs representing the over $15 billion in federal government investments that were supportive to tourism in the past year. Now, looking ahead, we are seeing some signals of future demand that are pointing in a very positive direction, I would say. However, our research is showing that consumer sentiment does correlate very closely with real-time conditions. And that's why it's so crucial that we work collectively to restore people's confidence in travel, which has been badly shaken this past year. And that confidence needs to extend both to travelers as well as to host communities to feel ready and willing to invite people back into their hometowns. Now, 80% of Canadians say they plan to travel when restrictions are lifted, which is an extremely good sign. But we know too that Canada typically has a very large travel deficit. That is that Canadians spend almost double on outbound travel outside of our country compared to what foreign travelers spend on inbound travel to Canada. So in the short term, it's very important that Canadians keep their holiday dollars in Canada this year to help speed up our sector's recovery. And by simply doing that, they can help speed up recovery by a year. Destination Canada's short-term marketing plans are really designed to channel that domestic demand to our destinations within Canada. Now, a key part of our plan to revive revenue is a multi-phased approach that will align our messaging with the evolution of health restrictions, which are very, very different depending on what part of the country we're talking about. And right now, we're still in the influence phase. And during this stage, we have a few key goals. We want to ensure that Canadians understand the importance of Canada's tourism industry so that they feel ready and willing to welcome visitors into their communities. We want to inspire confidence to travel domestically by showcasing the many ways in which our industry has addressed the health and hygiene protocols and by inspiring them with great ideas for travel in Canada. And we want to reignite that welcoming spirit of Canadian communities. And as conditions improve, we will start to introduce much more aggressive calls to action, inspiring Canadians to plan and book their travel, which is a message that health authorities are not ready to hear from us yet, but many Canadians have already done so, as I'm sure you're aware. And in the months ahead, all of us have a job to do together. And that is to really help to amplify that peer-to-peer social sharing that we will see from early travelers. So as those first travelers begin to emerge and we see them in our properties and in our parks, in our communities, helping them to share their experiences with their friends, family, and colleagues is probably the single most important thing that we can do to help restore the confidence of others. So here are just a few examples of the work that we've done specific to New Brunswick. On the upper left side of the screen, you may recognize Pooja Rajmohan from the Algonquin Resort in St. Andrews. She told us that this town thrives on tourism, and if the Algonquin is successful, the town is successful. And she felt that this past year, they were really humbled by the support that New Brunswickers showed them in choosing to visit St. Andrews, saying that many of them had never before experienced that 130 years history that they offer in a very vibrant seaside town. So we plan to inspire and surprise Canadians with the range of extraordinary experiences that are available in their own backyard, just like the Algonquin Resort. Now, even though our short-term efforts are focused on domestic travel, we are continuing to do work in our key international markets, as I'm sure you would expect. We're working very closely with our in-market teams globally to ensure that Canada stays top of mind when travel reopens, and we're continuing to cultivate those all-important travel trade and travel media relationships that we have to ensure that we can come out of the gates very quickly. And one example of that work is with Boundless. It's a very high impact magazine published by Virtuoso that goes to high value travelers across its network. And this issue, or these issues, were entirely focused on travel ideas in Canada. So looking a little farther down the road, what will it really take for the visitor economy across Canada to truly thrive? Well, we believe it begins with a new North Star, one that orients us perhaps more towards why our corporation exists in the first place. It's our aspiration to ensure that we enhance the quality of life of Canadians as an industry, and we enrich the lives of visitors. And we will be enabling Canadian culture to thrive and place-based regenerative economies to emerge. That is our mandate, and we'll be working together with other organizations to help elevate Canada's competitiveness as a tourism destination as the world reopens. So to come on this journey with us, let's please stay connected. You can see some of the ways to stay in touch with us on the screen right now. Je vous encourage à rester connecté avec nous sur nos canaux de communication. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. And back to you, Carol, for some Q&A.
Thank you so much, Marcia. As I mentioned at the start of the session, this town hall was developed for you to ask questions directly to industry leaders on issues affecting your business and the tourism industry. So many of you submitted your questions in advance, and please continue to submit questions through the Q&A at the bottom of the page. Plusieurs d'entre vous ont soumis vos questions à l'avance, et s'il vous plaît, continuez de soumettre vos questions à travers la fonction questions et réponses tout au long de la période de questions. I'll ask that the panel please keep your responses short and to the point so that we can get through as many questions as possible, and I'll do my best to direct them to the most appropriate person. To start the conversation, let's begin with some of the questions that were submitted in advance. Voici quelques questions soumises à l'avance. Will we see a national set of safety protocols or standards developed to allow for consistent planning between the provinces on when it's safe to promote tourism and to what degree? Verrons-nous l'élaboration d'un ensemble de protocoles ou normes de sécurité à l'échelle nationale pour permettre une planification cohérente entre les provinces sur le moment où il est sécuritaire de promouvoir le tourisme et à quel degré? So I think this is a question for Beth.
Well, thank you, Carol, for that. Because the requirements around health protocols are regionally controlled by the provincial and territorial governments, I don't think that we're going to see government-sanctioned national protocols. However, many of the sector associations at the national level have been creating national protocols that line up with what's happening globally. And you know, the province or the provincial sector associations are taking those to the provincial governments. So I think that in a way we can say yes, just not government or federally government sanctioned protocols.
Okay, thank you. The next question, nous voulons savoir comment la saison touristique va se passer avec les barrières aux frontières. We want to know how the tourism season is going to go with the border barriers. So I think that's a Marcia question.
Merci de votre question. Je travaille fort pour améliorer mon français et j'espère que l'an prochain, je serai capable de vous répondre en français. But today, I'm going to have to respond in English. I think as we look at how tourism will unfold, it's pretty clear that we will see a similar pattern to last year. Very much unfolding at the hyperlocal level, rolling out to an intra-provincial level of mobility. And then I think it's highly unlikely our international borders will open prior to the fences that have been put up between us as provinces. So once we are traveling across Canada freely, I think there will be a lot more discussion about international borders opening. I will just add that about 10 days ago, Dr. Tam, our federal health authority, made a statement that I thought probably put the closest thing to real milestones in place that we've seen so far. And while this is not at all definitive, she indicated that once 75% of adults in Canada have had their first dose of vaccine, which our modeling shows would happen about mid-June. And following that, once 20% of Canadian adults have had their second dose, which our modeling shows would happen toward the latter part of July, then we can start having discussions about international borders reopening. And she indicated that, Dr. Tam indicated that that would likely be, 4 to 5 weeks after that second milestone. So again, our modeling is just that. It's a model. It is not definitive by any stretch, and we have no inside knowledge on this beyond what we hear publicly. So our best case at the moment, I think, looks like early September for international borders.
Okay, thank you. The next question, do you have any information on admittance of fully vaccinated domestic traveler to New Brunswick? So I guess I'll take this one. There's actually no change for those that are fully vaccinated. I actually just checked this morning and I was told that at this time, those that are fully vaccinated are required to follow the same travel and isolation rules as everyone else. So we suspect that, there will be some changes, but when everybody is vaccinated, but I believe that the provinces and territories are just going to follow the lead of our federal partners. Next question. Will there be lobbying efforts for support program extensions and/or additional support for the cruise industry supply chain who have been locked down by Transport Canada with no opportunity to return until the 2022 season? Y aura-t-il des efforts de plaidoyer pour la prolongation des programmes de soutien et ou un soutien supplémentaire pour la chaîne d'approvisionnement de l'industrie de croisière qui a été bloquée par Transport Canada sans possibilité de retour avant la saison 2022? So Beth, I think maybe you can take that one.
Oui, merci. Je suis heureuse de vous dire qu'on va commencer un nouveau comité et la première réunion, c'est demain. So tomorrow we are having our first meeting of the National Cruise Committee, which is a brand new committee within TIAC. And it's exactly for the purpose of understanding better the impacts of the restrictions that Transport Canada has placed on the cruise industry and the supply chain to the cruise industry. We've also invited a member of the cruise supply chain sector to join our recovery committee. So we will absolutely be taking up the mantle and including this important sector in our recommendations and our lobby efforts going forward.
Great. Thank you, Beth. How do you see destination management organizations helping tourism businesses and destinations moving forward? Comment voyez-vous les organisations de marketing de destination aider les entreprises touristiques et les destinations pour l'avenir? So Marcia, that is for you.
I thought that might come my way. Well, first of all, I think that the work that our local DMOs have been doing throughout this pandemic has been enormously useful. In the short term, it's really all about getting locals to support local businesses to the extent possible or permissible. And they have very much carried that torch and message into our local communities. And we were very proud last year to be able to support them in doing so, because I know for many who are reliant on hotel revenues for their capacity to do those things were greatly diminished during this time. So I believe DMOs will continue to have a critical role in our ecosystem moving forward. They've always known the product on the ground best, and it's really very important that we, as well as provinces and territories, continue to partner with them to really understand what we have in the way of product, to understand the local issues, the needs of businesses, and throughout the ecosystem, promoting and introducing the world to the product on the ground. So I don't see a significant change in that role going forward. I think it's still a very necessary part of our overall approach to marketing our tourism products in this country.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. So we'll now go to the questions that we have received since the beginning of the session. So here's one. Are there different rules for individuals living outside New Brunswick who have either purchased a business or need to return from out of province to reopen their seasonal business? I will take that one. There is no difference between whether you are a New Brunswicker returning to New Brunswick or anyone coming into New Brunswick. The rules remain the same, 14-day isolation. And just recently, Premier Higgs announced that anyone coming in would need to stay at a hotel or a designated place for isolation, and they are taking care of each situation differently. So unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it is the same for everyone coming into the province. Let me see. Here's one. I'm wondering what your position is on water borders specific to the cruise industry being opened up simultaneously with land borders. Is this something you'll be advocating for through the newly established Cruise Tourism Committee? So that's the one's for you, Beth.
So I think that when borders are open, borders are open. Regardless of how you arrive, whether it's by land, water, or air, when the border is open, you should be able to arrive in any fashion that you want to. The thing that we're going to be lobbying for is for Transport Canada to lift the restriction on sailing and on vessels, passenger vessel use. So we know, based on the conversations we've had with the cruise industry so far this year, that even if Transport Canada announced tomorrow that cruising could recommence, that most of the ships have been deployed to other ports of entry, other ports of call for this season. So we will continue to lobby government to get that change lifted, so that come next season you'll be ready to go.
Okay, good. An Atlantic bubble question, so I will take that. It says the Atlantic bubble, if the Atlantic bubble opens up, any word on inter-bubble travel credits to encourage travel between the 4 provinces? Right now, the Explore NB incentive program will continue. Right now, all we know is it will be for New Brunswickers, But the announcement will not, I don't imagine will take place until the Atlantic bubble opens up. But the incentive program is continuing on for New Brunswickers here. I'm just looking at the Q&A here. Okay. Here's a question for all panelists before closing. So, how can we work together post-COVID? So maybe Marsha, you can start.
Wow, that's a big one. I think in Canada, we actually have a remarkable history of collaborating at every level of our ecosystem and in forging partnerships right across the country to make sure that what we are doing can be better, louder, more impactful in the marketplace. And I think that that's intensified in the last year. I know that our work with provincial and territorial and city destination marketers has never been as intense. We meet every 6 to 8 weeks to discuss our strategies, to plan our re-entry into international markets, to talk about who's spending what, where, and to make sure that our re-entry is as effective and noisy as possible. So, you know, I see that kind of collaboration having deepened during this crisis, continuing and forging a new way forward after this that I think will help us be even more effective in what will only be an even more competitive global marketplace in the future.
Great. Beth?
So I think that you know, we've got a great relationship between TIAC and the provincial and territorial tourism industry associations. And having been at that table for 10 years as the head of the Ontario Tourism Industry Association, I understand the relationship there. And I fully expect to continue to work very closely, or even more so, with the provincial and territorial tourism industry associations going forward. It's incredibly important to me that when we are taking, you know, a position on something, that it is backed by the members, that the members, this is coming directly from the businesses that we represent. And so feeding into policy conversations from the grassroots through the provincial organizations up to the national organization is it's something that must happen, and that we will continue to ensure. And we want to work more closely with our the other organizations that are representing you, whether you are, you know, it's not just the provincial, you know, it's not just TIAC, but you might be a member of your sector association. And so we've got good relationships and open dialogue with the national sector associations too. So whether that's, you know, Restaurants Canada, the Hotel Association of Canada, the Festival and Major Events, you know, and Ski Canada, you know, we want to make sure that we are in communication. We understand the viewpoints from as many different angles as possible, so that we can better represent you and make sure that the policy decisions that are being made on Parliament Hill are being made with the best result for the tourism industry and the suite of sectors that we represent. Now during COVID, and when we're not dealing with a pandemic and we're just back to doing business.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, I've been in this position for almost 3 years now. And when I first started, we would meet once a quarter. And of course, when COVID started, we met every single week with all the provincial and territorial associations. And, you know, it was we were crying on each other's shoulders, but what it gave us is that support across the nation, because it wasn't just us going through it, it was everybody was going through it. And I think that, you know, this is a silver lining, because our relationships has just grown that much better. It's the same with the Atlantic Caucus, you know, in Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland. We work constantly together to try to share, you know, in anything that we're doing. So there's no doubt that working together with Destination Canada, the provinces, and the associations is going to continue, and our relationship will continue to grow. And within New Brunswick, you know, our regions are phenomenal. Our DMOs, our RTAs, they share, they produce programs together. They say, you know, if you come here, they promote each other. I find that our province is amazing that way, and they produce itineraries to help people stay in different locations longer. So there's absolutely no doubt that moving forward, we will continue working together better and stronger. So I'm just going to check to see. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions in the hopper here, unless, nope, that's good. So I'm just going to say thank you, everyone, for joining this town hall and for submitting your questions. For those that there were other questions submitted, I don't think that if there are any that were not answered, we will make sure that the panel receives them and answers them individually directly through email. Okay, so once again, thank you, merci, to the Tourism Industry Association of Canada, Destination Canada, for partnering with Tourism Industry Association of New Brunswick, and for being with us today. And a special big thank you to all of you, our participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.